Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about udder anatomy and physiology. Quick note that none of these images are mine. I don't claim to have taken or created any of them. So let's get started. So, udder health is central to milk production, reproduction, milk yield, and animal welfare. And by understanding the anatomy and physiology of the udder, we can improve the productivity, both the productivity and sustainability in dairy systems. The scope and relevance, the scope of this talk includes comparative anatomy, physiology, health across domestic species, because even though I think we're most familiar with cows, dairy cows, there's other species that are used for milk production as well, sheep, goats, even buffalo. So I think it's important to highlight those. And then my objectives are also so we're going to highlight those structural and functional differences. We're going to explain their practical implications, and also we're going to connect this knowledge to disease prevention. Udder health is not just a biological concern, it directly impacts farm economics and animal welfare. So for comparative udder anatomy, in cattle, the udder is divided into four quarters, each with its own teat. We know that, well, you're learning now, that buffalo have a heavier udder with stronger suspensory ligaments. And then goats and sheep, by contrast, they have two teats and kind of a simpler structure because it's not as heavy. And these evolutionary adaptations influence milk yield and management practices across species. So we may not manage buffalo the same way that we manage cattle, that we manage sheep, or that we manage goats. And to talk about a little bit of the gross macroscopic anatomy, as I mentioned, the udder has its quarters, its teats. It also has the intermammary groove, the supporting ligaments, which are really important. I'm sure some people in class have seen like the cows at the dairy farm, and they have those gigantic udders, and obviously they need some support. Um, and so there's actually the median and lateral suspensory apparatus, which are critical for that udder stability. And the shape and size varies between the fore and hindquarters, as well as across breeds. These external features are key landmarks for both anatomy and clinical evaluation. On more of the microscopic level, the parenchyma includes the alveoli, lobules, and lobes, where the milk is actually synthesized by the mammary epithelial cells. The stroma provides connective tissue, vasculature, lymphatics, and nerves. The duct system has the cisterns, sinuses, canals, and mucosal folds, which ensure milk transport. And histology reveals the intricate organization that supports lactation, because lactation, as we recently learned in class, is kind of a complicated process. Trying to change slides. Okay, there we go. For the blood, lymphatic, and nervous supply, the udder has a rich blood supply via the external and internal pudendal arteries, with venous return through the milk vein. Lymphatic drainage occurs through the supramammary lymph node, which plays a role in disease resistance. Innervation includes sensory and autonomic nerves essential for the milk ejection reflex, as well as physiological regulation. Sorry, again, trying to change slides. So for the udder physiology, Milk synthesis is regulated by hormones such as prolactin, oxytocin, estrogen, and cortisol. We saw that oxytocin in class, we talked about how important it is. It's the milk letdown hormone. We know that milk ejection is a neuroendocrine reflex. Stimulation of mechanoreceptors triggers oxytocin release, leading to contraction of myoepithelial cells. Across the lactation cycle, the mammary gland undergoes development during pregnancy, active secretion during lactation, and involution afterward. And involution is important because the mammary gland does need to kind of settle down, recover after producing milk and possibly even getting mastitis. Needs some time to recover after so much. And for the functional differences and practical implications, species differ in the proportion of cisternal versus alveolar milk. This affects milking management, yield, and efficiency. Anatomy and physiology also influence milk composition and susceptibility to diseases such as mastitis. Understanding these differences allows us to optimize milking practices and improve herd health. And mastitis remains the most significant udder disease, reducing yield and reproductive performance. Anatomical and physiological factors such as teat sphincter function and mucosal barriers contribute to the risk. Advances in ultrasonography, thermography, and genetic studies are providing new tools for diagnosis and prevention, supporting both productivity and animal welfare. And it's super important to find these new ways to deal with mastitis. We know that there's different types. We have the clinical and the subclinical. So sometimes a cow may be suffering from mastitis, but we just can't see it visually yet. So it's always cool to have these new ways to find it. In conclusion, integrating knowledge of udder anatomy and physiology is essential for improving domestic animal production and health. Future directions include genetic selection, molecular biology, and precision dairy management. Ultimately, healthy udders are the foundation of sustainable dairy systems. So thank you for listening. I hope you learned something new.